So, I see it everywhere. I could give an entire lecture on ideas that work. I could do it only on Baltimore's successes. But the question is how you take these islands of excellence and expand them into hemispheres of hope. It takes collective will. People who want to tell the truth of this country. They don't want to just stand up and say, I pledge allegiance, and end with those 5 words, with liberty and justice for all. But people who want to tell that truth in what they do, how they work, how they struggle, how they sacrifice. Now, I talked about being broken. It's such an important point to make, because I'd be lying to you if I told you that there aren't days that I don't feel like being me, where I feel so beat down that I come home and I curl up on my couch and I pray that Colbert or Jon Stewart will be funny tonight. and all of us have addictions. Mine, I'm addicted to these guys, Ben and Jerry. When I was walking on my 35th birthday, my dad had come to visit me, and I was walking up a hill in Newark, on the same street, interestingly, where I heard the news about my grandfather passing. And gunshots rang out between these 2 buildings. They sounded like cannon fire. And I ran up the hill as kids were running past me away from the echoing gunfire. And there was a young man who I saw holding onto a railing. I was coming up to him, and as I was coming up, he was falling back, and I caught him in my arms, only to look over his shoulder from behind and see his chest filling up with red blood. And I remember just letting him on the ground, throwing my hands into his chest. I have no medical training whatsoever. But I just knew blood coming, stop blood. So I started pushing everywhere I could, but it is nothing like you ever see in the movies. It was gruesome. I asked for his name, but now he's passed out. I screamed, somebody tell me his name. And I was just yelling at him, almost angry at him, don't leave me, don't leave me. I said, call the ambulance, and it just seemed like forever till they arrived, and meanwhile, his body, just foaming blood started pouring from his mouth, and the blood just kept coming and coming. The ambulance came, guys came, they shoved me out of the way, they ripped open his chest, and there were gunshots there in his chest and in his side. I knew he was dead. I felt nothing from him anymore. And I remember going back down the hill, and there was my dad looking at his son with red blood all over him. And we couldn't even speak. And after staring at each other for a while, I just said, Dad, please just go back to my apartment. I'll be there soon. I answered questions from the police, went back, and I got to my apartment in Brick Towers, 16th floor. My dad was there, and he said, how are you? And I just couldn't speak to him. I said, I'll be okay, I just need to go to the bathroom. And I get there, and I stood in front of that mirror and turned on the sink and started trying to scrub another man's blood off me, a boy's blood. And I scrubbed and I scrubbed. And even when it was gone, my hands were still shaking, and I just started crying. And I felt my heart get swallowed up in anger and rage and thinking to myself, what have we become? This nation where we profess these values and these ideals, but for so many people, they are not real, wild, or abundant. They're rare. I felt this anger that our nation has a perverse obsession with the death of some children. Everybody here could name Natalie Holloway or Jean-Benet Ramsey, but not one person probably can name a kid murdered in my city. I just felt so much anger devouring my spirit, and I'll never forget leaving that bathroom and just feeling like, what was it all worth? My dad was still there. He wanted to talk and engage. I didn't. But his words from an earlier conversation kept stabbing at my heart, where he said to me, the most funny, exciting guy who always lifted me, said something to me about, son, I was born a poor black child in North Carolina, segregated environment, in 1936. I'm wondering what's happening on your dad's watch, because a kid born under those same circumstances, poor, black, in a segregated environment, to a single mother just like me might have worse life chances than I did being born in 36. And I know he meant it as a challenge, but it stabbed at me because I know the data. You graduate from high school and you're a black boy in America now, you're more likely to go to prison to get a full-time job by some studies. That we as a total generation might be the first generation with lower literacy rates than our parents did. Higher poverty rates. I went to bed and I woke up the next morning, I went downstairs early, and there on the front of her towers, facing Martin Luther King Boulevard, was Miss Jones. And I remember walking up and seeing the back of her head, and she didn't even know I was there. And I stopped, and I took a deep breath, and I smiled and went up and talked to her. And I smiled because she, a while earlier, was telling me a story because I was writing a column for Esquire. And she was telling me the story where her son fought overseas in the military and came back to visit his mother on the 5th floor of these projects, and she got a knock on her door, and it wasn't her son, and it was a woman who was crying and couldn't speak to her, just dragged her down those 5 flights of stairs into the lobby where she saw her son on his back with bullet holes in his chest, bleeding that lobby floor red. And she said she fell to the ground and wailed into the lobby, screaming because her son, one of our servicemen, was dead. And so she told me the story, and I'll never forget the conversation right after. I looked at her and I said, Miss Jones, you never know what to say. And I just said something stupid. I said, I know where you work, Miss Jones. She worked at the prosecutor's office, and she and I were both paying market rent to live in these buildings that would become public housing. And she says to me, I say to her, I go, I know the money you make. Why'd you stay in these buildings? I said, why are you still here? And she looks at me almost like I was insulted by the question. She goes, why do I still live in Brick Towers? I go, yeah. And she goes, you're asking me why I still live in apartment 5A? And I said, yeah. And she says to me, you're asking me why I'm the 10th president and have been since the day these buildings were opened, 1969? I'm like, that's electoral longevity, but yeah, I'm asking you that. And she crosses her arms and she looks at me and she says, because I'm in charge of Homeland Security. Here was a woman that when she was broken, it forged within her more strength and determination. That when she was broken, it was almost like the earth being broken, and the soil of her soul took the seeds of that bitter pain and let it grow flowers and hope and crops for a generation of Brick Towers residents to harvest. When she was broken, she let who she was seep through those cracks like cement, bonding her and infecting and injecting others around her. Here's this mother of these buildings that could